Hey, boys and girls, here's Mr. Bookman saying, read that Dickens. Read the Dickens out of that Dickens. Here goes the remote to the lights. I'll pick it up later. Oh, my. Here, I don't even have my book ready to roll, but we'll get it. How y'all doing? Everybody good today? Can you tell I didn't do diddly squat to my hair today? It's the same tired bun it was yesterday. On the side. Come on, Dickens, come up. Here we go. I believe. Now, why is it not letting me move it? Come on. Oh, for heaven's sakes. We'll get it in a minute. I hope. Yeah, here we go. Okay. He was with the ghost, Scrooge was with the ghost of Christmas past, and she was reminding him about his sister and that she died a woman, and I think had one child or children, and he said one child, and she said, or he, true, said the ghost, your nephew. And I know some of you said you had never heard this version either, and I think I messed up on where I thought the times were, but it's still different than what I'd heard before, but it's okay. The main story is the same. Although they had but that moment left the school behind them, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city where shadowy passengers passed and repassed, where shadowy carts and coaches. Where's my just had my thing. Oh, well, forgive me. My thing Lisa gave me. My scarf or shawl. Anyway. Where shadowy carts and coaches battled for their way, they were all the strife and tumult of a real city were. It was made plain enough by the dressing of the shops that here, too, it was Christmas time again, but it was evening, and the streets were lighted up. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it. Know it, said Scrooge. I was apprenticed here. They went in, out of sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig, sitting behind such a high desk that if he'd been 2 inches taller, he must have knocked his head against the ceiling. Scrooge cried in great excitement. And I bet you know who it is. Why, it's old Fezziwig. Bless his heart. It's Fezziwig alive again. Old Fezziwig laid down his pen and looked up at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. He rubbed his hands, adjusted his capacious waistcoat, laughed all over himself, from his shoes to his organ of benevolence, and called out in a comfortable, oily, rich, fat, jovial voice, Yo-ho there, Ebenezer! Dick! Scrooge's former self, now grown, a young man, came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow apprentice. Dick Wilkins, to be sure, said Scrooge to the ghost. Bless me, yes, there he is. He was very attached to me, was Dick. Poor Dick, dear, dear. Yo-ho, my boy, said Fezziwig. No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick. Christmas, Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up, cried old Fezziwig with a sharp clap of his hands, before a man can say Jack Robinson. You wouldn't believe how those two fellows went at it. They charged into the street with the shutters, 1, 2, 3, had them up in their places, 4, 5, 6. Didn't bring my, I'm just not prepared tonight. 4, 5, 6, barred 'em and pinned 'em, 7, 8, 9, and came back before you could have got to 12, panting like racehorses. "Hilly-ho!" cried old Fezziwig, skipping down from the high desk with wonderful agility. "Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room here. Hilly-ho, Dick! Cheer up, Ebenezer!" Clear away. There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away or couldn't have cleared away with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. Every movable was packed off as if it were dismissed from public life forevermore. The floor was swept and watered. The lamps were trimmed. Fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book and went up to the lofty desk and made an orchestra of it and tuned like 50 stomach aches. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast substantial smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came the 6 young followers whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In came the housemaid with her cousin, the baker. In came the cook with her brother's particular friend, the milkman. In came the boy from over the way who was suspected of not having board enough from his master, trying to hide himself behind the girl from next door but one, who was proved to have had her ears pulled by her mistress. In they all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling. But in they all came, anyhow and everyhow. Away they all went, 20 couple at once, hands round, half round, and back again, the other way, down the middle and up again, round and round in various stages of affectionate grouping. Old top couple always turning up in at the wrong place, new top couples starting off again. As soon as they got there, all top couples at last, and not a bottom one to help them. I guess that's just the way they're dancing. I'm not sure what all that means. When this result was brought about, old Fezziwig, clapping his hands to stop the dance, cried out, "Well done!" And the fiddler plunged his hot face into a pot of porter, especially provided for that purpose. But scorning rest upon his reappearance, he instantly began again. Get off. Sorry, sometimes I hit this when weird things come up. Instantly began again, though there were no dancers yet, as if the other fiddler had been carried home exhausted on a shutter, and he were a brand new man resolved to beat him out of sight or perish. There were more dances, and there were more forfeits, and more dances, and there was a cake, and there was negus, Negus. I have to look that one up. And Michelle, or somebody, y'all help me with my words, and I appreciate it. Negus. How was it used? There was cake, and there was negus, so something to eat, maybe. And I've heard of haggis, but not that. And there was a great piece of cold roast, and there was a great piece of cold boiled. And there were mince pies and plenty of beer. But the great effect of the evening came after the roast and boiled. And that's in capital letters. When the fiddler, an artful dog mind, the sort of man who knew his business better than you or I could have told it him, struck up Sir Roger de Coverley. I guess that's a song. Then old Fezziwig stood out to dance with Mrs. Fezziwig, top couple too, with a good stiff piece of work cut out for them, 3 or 4 and 20 pair of partners, people who were not to be trifled with, people who would dance and had no notion of walking, so they're serious about this dancing. But if they had been twice as many, all 4 times, old Fezziwig would have been a match for them, and so would Mrs. Fezziwig. And remember, he's a little, in the movies, he's always depicted as a kind of little short, round fella, and she's kind of hefty too. Let's see. As to her, she was worthy to be his partner in every sense of the term. If that's not high praise, tell me higher and I'll use it. A positive light appeared to issue from Fezziwig's calves. They shone in every part of the dance like moons. You couldn't have predicted at any given time what would have become of them next. And when old Fezziwig and Mrs. Fezziwig had gone all through the dance, advance and retire, both hands to your partner, bow and curtsy, corkscrew, thread the needle, and back again to your place, Fezziwig cut so deftly that he appeared to wink his legs, and came upon his feet again without a stagger. That makes me think of that little sideways jump that people do, and both their feet leave the air. I'm not sure. When the clock struck 11, this domestic ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig took their stations, one on either side of the door, and shaking hands with every person individually as he or she went out, wished him or her a Merry Christmas. When everybody had retired but the 2 prentices, it doesn't say apprentices, it's the, oh shoot. I can't think of the word. You know, the little mark in the air like you're having contractions. The word, oh my gosh, I can't think of apostrophe. Prentices, they did the same to them, and thus the cheerful voices died away, and the lads were left to their beds, which were under a counter in the back shop. During the whole of this time, Scrooge had acted like a man out of his wits. His heart and soul were in the scene, and with his former self he corroborated everything, remembered everything, enjoyed everything, and underwent the strangest agitation. It was not until now, when the bright faces of his former self and Dick were turned upon them, that he remembered the ghost, and became conscious that it was looking full upon him, while the light upon its head burned very clear. A small matter, said the ghost, to make these silly folks so full of gratitude. Small, echoed Scrooge. The spirit signed to him to listen to the 2 apprentices, who were pouring out their hearts in praise of Fezziwig, and when he had done so, said, "Why, is it not? He has spent but a few pounds of your mortal money, 3 or 4 perhaps. Is that so much that he deserves this praise?" "It isn't that," said Scrooge, heated by the remark, and speaking unconsciously like his former, not his latter self. "It isn't that, Spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks, and things so slight and insignificant that is impossible to add and count 'em up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune." He felt the spirit's glance and stopped. "What's the matter?" asked the ghost. "Nothing particular," said Scrooge. "Something, I think," the ghost insisted. "No," said Scrooge. "No, I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now, that's all." His former self turned down the lamps as he gave utterance to the wish, and Scrooge and the ghost stood again, side by side in the open air. "My time grows short," observed the spirit. "Quick." This was not addressed to Scrooge or to anyone whom he could see, but it produced an immediate effect, for again Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of his life. His face had not the harsh and rigid lines of later years, but it had begun to wear the signs of care and avarice. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in the eye which showed the passion that had taken root, and where the shadow of the growing tree would fall. He was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a mourning dress. And by mourning, it's like in mourning, sadness. In whose eyes there were tears which sparkled in the light that shone out the ghost of Christmas past. "It matters little," she said softly, "to you very little. Another idol has displaced me, and if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come, as I would have tried to do, I have no just cause to grieve." "What idol has displaced you?" he rejoined. "A golden one." "This is the even-handed dealing of the world," he said. "There is nothing on which it is so hard as poverty, and there is nothing it professes to condemn with such severity as the pursuit of wealth." "You fear the world too much," she answered gently. "All your other hopes have merged into the hope of being beyond the chance of its sordid reproach. I have seen your nobler aspirations fall off one by one, until the master passion, gain, engrosses you, have I not?" "What then?" he retorted. "Even if I have grown so much wiser, what then? I am not changed towards you." She shook her head. "Am I?" "Our contract is an old one. It was made when we were both poor and content to be so, until in good season we could improve our worldly fortune by our patient industry. You are changed. When it was made, you were another man." "I was a boy," he said impatiently. "Your own feeling tells you that you are not what you are," she returned. "I am. That which promised happiness when we were one in heart is fraught with misery now that we are two. How often and how keenly I have thought of this, I will not say. It is enough that I have thought of it and can release you. Have I ever sought release? In words? No, never. In what then? In a changed nature, in an altered spirit, in another atmosphere of life, another hope as its great end, and everything that made my love of any worth or value in your sight. If this had never been between us," said the girl, looking mildly but with steadiness upon him, "tell me, would you seek me out and try to win me now?" "Ah, no." He seemed to yield to the justice of this supposition, in spite of himself, but he said with a struggle, "You think not?" "I would gladly think otherwise if I could," she answered. "Heaven knows, when I have learned a truth like this, I know how strong and irresistible it must be. But if you were free today, tomorrow, yesterday, can even I believe that you would choose a dowerless girl, you who in every confidence with her weigh everything by gain, or choosing her if for a moment you were false enough to your one guiding principle to do so? Do I not know that your repentance and regret would surely follow? I do. And I release you with a full heart for the love of him you once were." He was about to speak, but with her head turned from him, she resumed. "You may, the memory of what is past half makes me hope you will, have pain in this, a very, very brief time, and you will dismiss the recollection of it gladly as an unprofitable dream from which it happened well that you awoke. May you be happy in the life you have chosen." And she left him, and they parted. "Spirit," said Scrooge, "show me no more. Conduct me home. Why do you delight to torture me?" "One shadow more," exclaimed the ghost. "No more," cried Scrooge. "No more. I don't wish to see it. Show me no more." But the relentless ghost pinioned him in both his arms and forced him to observe what happened next. They were in another scene and place, a room not very large or handsome, but full of comfort. Near to the winter fire sat a beautiful young girl, so like that last that Scrooge believed it was the same until he saw her. Now a comely matron sitting opposite her daughter. The noise in this room was perfectly tumultuous, for there were more children there than Scrooge in his agitated state of mind could count, and unlike the celebrated herd in the poem, they were not 40 children conducting themselves like one, but every child was conducting itself like 40. The consequences were uproarious beyond belief, but no one seemed to care. On the contrary, the mother and daughter laughed heartily and enjoyed it very much, and the latter, soon beginning to mingle in the sports, got pillaged by the young brigands most ruthlessly. What would I not have given to be one of them, though I never could have been so rude. No, no. I did bring some juice, so excuse me. Desert mouth. I wouldn't for the wealth of all the world have crushed that braided hair and torn it down, and for the precious little shoe I wouldn't have plucked it off. God bless my soul to save my life. As to measuring her waist in sport, as they did, bold young brood, I couldn't have done it. I should have expected my arm to have grown round it for punishment and never come straight again. He's, talking about the kids being so wild. Let's see. As to measuring her waist, I couldn't have done that. And yet I should have dearly liked, I own, to have touched her lips, to have questioned her, that she might have opened them, to have looked upon the lashes of her downcast eyes and never raised a blush, to have let loose waves of hair, an inch of which would be a keepsake beyond price. In short, I should have liked, I do confess, to have had the lightest license of a child, and yet to have been a man enough to know its value. But now a knocking on the door was heard, and such a rush immediately ensued that she, with laughing face and plundered dress, was borne towards it, in the center of a flush and boisterous group, just in time to greet the father, who came home attended by a man laden with Christmas toys and presents. Then he, shouting and struggling, and the onslaught that was made on the defenseless porter, the scaling him with chairs for ladders, to dive into his pockets, to spoil him of brown paper parcels, hold on tight by his cravat, hug him round his neck, pommel his back, and kick his legs in irrepressible affection. The shouts of wonder and delight with which the development of every package was received, the terrible announcement that the baby had been taken in the act of putting a doll's frying pan into his mouth, and was more than suspected of having swallowed a fictitious turkey glued on a wooden platter, the immense relief of finding this a false alarm, the joy and gratitude and ecstasy. They are all indestructible alike. It is enough that by degrees the children and their emotions got out of the parlor, and by one stair at a time up to the top of the house, where they went to bed, and so subsided. And now Scrooge looked on more attentively than ever, when the master of the house, having his daughter leaning fondly on him, sat down with her and her mother at his own fireside, and when he thought that such another creature quite as graceful and as full of promise, might have called him father, and been a springtime in the haggard winter of his life. His sight grew very dim indeed. "Belle," said the husband, turning to his wife with a smile, "I saw an old friend of yours this afternoon." "Who was it?" "Guess." "How can I? Tut, I don't know," she added in the same breath, laughing as he laughed. "Mr. Scrooge." Mr. Scrooge it was. I passed his office window, and it was not shut up, and he had a candle inside. I could scarcely help seeing him. His partner lies upon the point of death, I hear, and there he sat alone, quite alone in the world, I do believe." "Spirit," said Scrooge in a broken voice, "remove me from this place." "I told you these were shadows of the things that have been," said the ghost, "that they are what they are. Do not blame me." "Remove me," Scrooge exclaimed. "I cannot bear it." He turned upon the ghost, and seeing that it looked upon him with a face in which, in some strange way, there were fragments of all the faces it had shown him, wrestled with it. "Leave me, take me back, haunt me no more." In the struggle, if that can be called a struggle, in which the ghost, with no visible resistance on its own part, was undisturbed by any effort of its adversary, Scrooge observed that its light was burning high and bright, and dimly connected that with its influence over him. He seized the extinguisher cap, and by a sudden action pressed it down upon its head. The spirit dropped beneath it. So that the extinguisher covered its whole form, the hat, the pointy hat. But though Scrooge pressed it down with all his force, he could not hide the light which streamed from under it in an unbroken flood upon the ground. He was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and further of being in his own bedroom. He gave the cap a parting squeeze, in which his hand relaxed, and had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. And I'll stop there, and we'll be at Stave, which are like chapters, Stave or Acts, Stave 3, and we'll be at the second of the three spirits, and you know who that is, right? The ghost of Christmas present. That's right. Okay. So I'll put my bookmark. Come on, bookmark. That's not it. I hadn't used this. Well, I have used my Kindle, but like the tools and stuff, like the bookmarks and stuff. I don't know why I have such a time. I'm supposed to just be able to pull it down. And it ain't working. Oh, well, there we go. I got it. Yay! Well, I hope you all have had a wonderful Tuesday. I must be blind. Chester was sitting on it. Penny and the gals at Heidi's hangout. This is something else. Whoever made this did a bang-up job. Not that all of you didn't. I love every single squirrel I've gotten. And as soon as, see, I may have, now that I'm looking at this unit that I got at IKEA, I wonder if I can turn this around now. I don't need it turned back. Nope. Well, anyway, y'all saw it before, maybe, I hope. That's got 8 units in it. I think I'm going to buy another one next payday. Put it on top. To have more room to get some of this stuff out of the way. And then I'll still have a top of it to still put my little critters and stuff. And we'll still have room wall to put. And back behind me, I want the brick wall. We're going to stick it up. Hannah and I took a look at it today. But, oh, we were plumb worn out. And she did way more work than I did. So, Lindsay got in here and did the first part of the work. The overwhelming. Oh, my gosh. And then Hannah came today. I have no kitty cat anymore. My grandkitty's gone. But I have a beautiful craft room. I have the best children. I know y'all do too. We all do, don't we? I am so, so blessed to have good children, to have a place over my head, to have a bed to sleep in, a good brother, good young'uns. I already said that. And you folks, and Seta and all you folks who said, start a channel. And I put it off forever and ever. All you folks that are thinking of starting a channel, just do it. I was apprehensive about it. I won't say I was really scared. I was just, meh. And some people have said to me, and y'all probably seen a comment or two, like, what do you do? Just talk? Oh, I thought of another funny story, but I'm going to make you wait till tomorrow's live. And when I look back at the replay of the live, I don't listen to me. I turn me down. Or just so I can barely hear, so I can tell what's going on and who I said what to and whatever. I miss so much of what y'all say, and I am so sorry. But I'm going to try to go back over that, and I see a lot of you that I could be shouting out. And y'all, it took me for 10 years. I got links on, and I hope everybody that I shouted out is okay with the links I put on. I wanted it just to go to your channel and not a specific video, but I don't know how to do it other than how I did it. So I hope that's okay. And anyway, I'll try to be more cognizant of what you guys say. But I do have that funny story for you. So if I squirrel, which I probably will, the girls did remind me of it while we were on vacation. And then I knew I had a story to tell you, but I couldn't remember what it was. And so it dawned on me today. So I will try to, I'll tell you that, and I will try to comment on some of the things that you guys commented on, and try to shout some of you guys out that have channels, and maybe could use a little help. We can all use a little help. My numbers up, down, up, down. I mean, I'm still blessed with those too, because I got a long ways in a short amount of time. I've only been on here since mid-May. And with a lot of help from my friends, all of you, or most all of you, because if you're here listening to me, you're one of them. Okay, thank you, folks. Love you all. Be sweet. Don't be ugly. Granny included. Love you. Bye-bye.